Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day, Muhammad Hassan, for the introduction. So, leading with ethics, my fellow leaders and aspiring leaders. I always believe that leaders are like engines of train. Do you know why? Because engine carries all the rail carriage boxes to the particular destination, and leaders does it too. They help you achieve the targets and goals. Do you know another reason? It even carries with him the last rail car also. Nobody leader does not leave anyone behind. Everybody is involved. Third most important attribute, an engine takes all the fuel, all the burnings, all the coal, all the pain the leader takes in order for the organization or the community to thrive. That's what leaders are also. And fourth important quality, engines have a planned way, so the leaders also. They know their strategy, they have a vision, and they pursue it, and they follow that particular path. So, my fellow engines and aspiring engines of lives, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, whichever part of the world you all are. This engine cannot run without fuel. And do you know what is the fuel of that engine of leadership? Ethics. Ethics is the fuel that burns, that is the main focus energy of that engine. Because of that engine is running, and all those rail cars are tagging along with it. So, what are ethics? Peter Drucker said management is about doing the things right, but leadership is about doing the right thing. To have that ability to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, what feels right, what feels wrong. That is ethics. Your inner values, your moral compass. That's what ethics. That's what is driving you. Man is driven by the values that he has. And those are maybe affected by your culture, your religion, your environment, your political economics. So that's what ethics are about. To have that panel discussion, I have a panelist from 4 different countries. We have a panelist from India, we have panelists from Saudi Arabia, we have a panelist from USA, and we have a panelist from Ghana. So we will have a diverse and very insightful view of what ethics are all about and why they are important for a leader. Can a leader be a good leader with or without ethics? That is the thing, and what it is all about to lead with ethics. So, our first panelist, he has been a leader for over 40 years. As a general manager of a 5-star hotel and a CEO of hospital. He joined Toastmasters in 2015, reached the district level in public speaking in 2016, and became DTM in 2018, and a Division J director for the term 2017 and 18. He is a member of 7 clubs, and he has just started his 7th pathway. Please help me welcome our first panelist. Warmly welcome distinguished Toastmaster Abdul Fattah Inayat. Yes. Great to have you with us, sir. And now the second panelist, one of my dear friends. She is a lifelong student of human behavior and leadership communication. Especially, she is the owner of Divinitatis consultant. I'm sorry, I mispronounced it. Relativism is consulting, a global leadership development firm, a highly sought after speaker with over 25 years of dynamic presentation experience worldwide. Her goal is to motivate and inspire people to discover their personal best and become in industry leaders by harnessing their inner CEO. She lives by the 5 principles of leadership. She is also the current District 39 Chief Contest Judge, also the Charter President of Erlangen Toastmasters. Please help me warmly welcome distinguished Toastmaster, our second panelist, Jake Tushansky. Oh, wonderful. Next up, we have a human resource professional specializing in designing and driving commercial excellence projects and change management. Enabled and empowered with experiences, insightful, gleaned over 22 decades from diverse industrial, organizational, and cultural settings. He's the facilitator of internal organizational excellence and organizational development and sales enablement leader. Currently working as director and head functional academy, leads the global commercial, technical, and digital capabilities of Cipla Limited. Please help me welcome warmly Anandya Bhattacharya. And last but not the least, Patricia. She is the sponsor of Perissos Horizon Toastmaster Club, a 2-time distinguished Toastmaster in both Legacy and Pathways program. She has served as a district pathway ambassador and 2-time area director, earning the district's area director award of the year 2016-17 mandates, and became the first female director of Ghana Toastmasters Division G in 2018-19, leading them to a president distinguished division. She is the communication and leadership coach and a 2-time self-published author of books on leadership and communication. Apart from all that, she is also a administrator and HR professional, married and blessed with 2 daughters. Please help me warmly welcome our 4th panelist, distinguished Toastmaster Patricia Mensah Larkai. Awesome, great to have you all the panelists with us. And our panel discussion theme is leading with ethics. So let's get on with it. We'll be discussing on what ethics are about in perspective of leadership. So first, we have DTM Fatah. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted.
DTM Fatah, for a culture to be ethical in an organization, and if you are wanted to create an ethical culture in an organization, what are the 3 most important things that will come to your mind and why?
Okay, thank you for that particular question. You know, if I think of the thousands of books that have been written about ethical leadership, the ink used on writing these books can fill the Indian Ocean. Now, in very short, I would like to quote Mike Carr, the 220,000 champion who came to district to Satak. And this is what he said. He said, take your eyes from the goal and focus on the small steps. With compounded efforts and consistency, great results will be achieved. And that is how you can create an ethical culture. Now, what are the 3 main components of culture? Just think of a ship. If you are in a ship and you are in the ocean, if you don't have a map and a compass, you get lost. So one of the most important things is to have a code of conduct, which usually in an organization comes into, what do you call this? Policies, missions, values, whatever, so that everybody knows how to behave. You don't want to leave the leader to sort of on how he gets up in the morning and how he feels, because this is a very important matter. The second thing is communication. That's what we learn in Toastmasters. Transparent communication. Communication with which engages the others. Communication is with transparency and with humility. It's very important to listen to the others with your mind as well as with your heart, okay? So that they can be confident to engage with you and give you a good response and good feedback. Last but not least, which is really a very important factor, it should have been the first, and that is to be a role model, to walk the talk of whatever things you talk. If you talk about honesty, justice, integrity, transparency, walk the talk. And let me give you a small example here. When we talk about the small steps makes big results. When I joined the hospital as CEO, I introduced a briefing first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock. So the managers used to come at 8, 8:10, 8:15. How can I enforce the rule? Now, being an early riser, I used to go like, 6 o'clock in the morning, see the night staff who nobody sees because they work in the graveyard shift, listen to their problems. And then when I come to the briefing, so I ask the managers, any problems, any issues? Well, they don't know, they just arrived. No, sir, everything is fine. Then I'll tell them what's going on. Once and twice, they felt embarrassed. And guess what? They started coming at 7 o'clock. And this small step has actually created great results because there was bonds between them and between their employees. And it made my job a lot easier. So these are the 3 components. And once more, I say, as Mike Card said, focus on the small steps, bigger results will take care of themselves. Thank you. Back to you.
Wonderful, Jityan, and great insight. And yes, true, we have to be the role models for the others, and we have to have that communication skills to communicate with them. It should not be a one-sided communication, two-sided. Both ways channels should be open. And third, of course, focus on the mission and the goals. So let's move on to our second panelist, Jityan Jake. Every organization or community have a mission or something that they are envisioning, that they are going to pursue. So how a leader decides what is best for their mission or the greater good? What if some of their followers or others must suffer for it to be achieved?
Thank you very much, Umar. When I think about the question, how does a leader decide what is best for the greater good? And I think about the greater good. Well, in a perfect world, we can go to the utilitarian leadership and we can say that concept of what makes the most people the happiest. However, this isn't a perfect world. And any excellent leader is willing to challenge the process, is willing to think of people first. And you ask that question, do you want people to suffer in order to, or people suffering in order to achieve the ultimate goal? We want to do every single thing we can to avoid that. And there is this concept of, oh, okay, well, some must. And we think about the trolley theory. There's a trolley theory of what do we do? There's a child on the tracks, and then there are 4 people in a cart. And the 4 people on the cart, they can either go off the tracks and all die, or there's one child and they can hit the child. And this is a dilemma. We also think about this in war. We can think about this in corporations. Do we let go of a few employees so we can keep the rest? All of these things are great challenges for any leader to deal with. And they can follow an easy suit, and some can seem like an easy path, but none of them ever truly are. So how do they do it? With great painstaking thought, with collaboration with other great minds, with consideration to what risks am I going to take? Will I take the input of all those who are affected? Or will I just let history repeat itself? That's the easy way. Let history repeat itself and then use that as an excuse. Or take a risk and try something different. Try not to let others suffer. And that may be sacrifice on the leader's point. That may mean the leader stepping down in order to do what is best for the organization. And we think about some of these big corporations. What about the leader and the business owner, that person who is receiving exorbitant income, giving up some of their income in order to help their employees? And we've seen businesses do that over the course of this crisis that we are going through now. And we've seen others say, oh no, I have to let people go. These are difficult decisions. How do they do it? Hopefully they do it with their heart as well as their minds, and are willing to take some risks to challenge any process that comes their way, not necessarily letting history repeat itself. Thank you. The screen is yours.
Yes, wonderful, like, wonderful thoughts. I always believe that there is an opportunity cost for everything. Sometimes you have to let go of things on your side in order for the greater good that you are doing for the organization. Wonderful thought process. And we have with us Anand, our third panelist. And as a director and in a leadership position for quite some time. So what is your view about ethics? Are ethics an innate or they are learned behavior? They are learned. How are our ethical values developed throughout our lives? So our ethics are innate or are learned? Learned. Over to you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for initiating this wonderful discussion. I think this one subject is evergreen and becoming even more relevant, and also getting to hear from my very distinguished panelists. It's a learning session for me also. Now, your question is ethics innate, or do we learn it on our way of leadership and all that? My answer to this very, very interesting question would be both. What does science say? Science says that the baby actually starts learning in the womb of the mother. And I think the value system is passed on even before the newborn puts the baby steps into this new world. And if you look at it, who is the first leader of every one of us? And that's our mothers. So the value transfer starts from that primary essential leader in our life. As we go ahead, parents, elders, seniors, teachers, they keep on imprinting and transferring their value system to the person as they're going up. Your first manager, so looking back, your question also made me think. Your first manager leaves an indelible print on your value system because you learn to navigate the corporate life through their lens. But there is also an organization culture. I think Toastmaster Fateh was also referring to that. And if the personal values of a person are very, very congruent with the organizational values, so there becomes a wonderful magic where the employee really feels to contribute their very best every day. And if you look at it, and I mean, we get to hear the millennials and all that. Now it's Gen Z. So it's more and more research. What they're saying is, it's not the compensation what they're most attractive to them. It's what the organization's purpose stand for. So we keep on enriching our values and ethics. So my answer to you, Toastmaster Omar, it would be, it's innate, but it also gets enriched and gets more and more, wide and deep at the same time as we navigate through this world and also through our corporate life.
Wonderful thoughts, Anindya. And true, it is both combination of both, like innate and the learned. We learn a lot of things throughout our lives from our mistakes. And sometimes it's an innate also, our own moral compass. So we have next our fourth panelist, Patricia. Patricia, I have an interesting topic for you. Culture and moral differences. I call it ethical relativism. How does it impact in the leadership and ethics intersection? How they are conflicting with each other or they are supporting each other? I will repeat what I said. How do cultural and moral differences, or I call ethical relativism, impacts the intersection of leadership and ethics? Patricia.
Thank you, Umar, for that question. And listening to my fellow panelists and trying to feed off all of the good that they have shared with us. When we talk about relativism, when it relates to ethics and then our culture, again, we're bringing ourselves into that space where you are making a comparison. And first of all, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're comparing ourselves with? And what is it that we are comparing ourselves to? We must begin to start thinking about how we look at things and how we perceive things and the sort of image that we create for ourselves. So let me talk about, for instance, food. Food is part of everybody's culture. We all come from places where we are nurtured, whether by our parents or our institutions or our country in general, to adore and to love our cultural food. If you see me, for instance, eating what we call in Ghana my banku and okro, which has this really slimy, stringy soup, and I am enjoying it and licking all my fingers, what will come into your mind? Would you think I am being nasty? Would you think what I'm eating is yucky? So, again, you're asking yourself the question about cultural relativism. Let me come away from the food dimension. In my culture, we are nurtured to be hospitable, to treat people nicely. And so when you have guests even coming into your home, you might not have had your breakfast and you are probably in a hurry to get ready for school or work. But the first thing your parents may ask you to do is to go ask the visitor, serve them water, offer them a cup of tea, etc. Because we feel it is the right thing to do. Somebody out there might think that, oh no, my daughter or my son is going to be late for school. It is not out of disrespect to say, hurry along, don't be late, go on to school, and ignore offering that visitor that cup of tea or that moment to relax over some water, etc. We don't have to be so quick to judge because probably in that particular culture, it might be quite acceptable for people to understand how these things occur and for them to gloss over it. So as a Ghanaian, probably in that space with this person, I may think, oh, they are uncultured. They have not been trained properly. Why didn't they offer me a cup of tea or water, etc., before dashing out the door? So when we talk about culture and then ethics, we need to look at the lenses which through which we observe and comment the impressions that we form in our minds. You may walk into an organization in our country and probably you are holding a workshop. You have invited people from different regions and they have traveled from far and near. There may be an occasion where you, as a participant, would be invited by the host or the co-creators of the workshop to probably come and sign off some amount of money that we call your transport, to help you defray the cost of transporting you to that location. Somebody who may not be akin to this particular occurrence will look at you and say, oh, they're taking bribes, they are corrupt. Oh, why are they giving off all of this money? But in this same instance, you would come to an organization in Ghana where you would require services to be rendered to you by people that are already paid to render that service. And they would demand, or they would create that delay tactic, waiting for you to give some money before your service is rendered. Now that is wrong. But giving those participants their transportation for honoring that invitation and attending that conference out of region, in most instances, is seen as part of our culture, our organizational culture, because they are giving up their time to come and share and co-create something that you would use probably in your next report to give you that good image out there, to give you that data in your statistics. So this is where I put in cultural and moral differences when it comes to ethics and how leaders lead. Back to you, Toastmaster Umar.
Wonderful thought process, Patricia, and great. I actually agree that we have to be non-judgmental. We should not judge, accept them the way they are. Now we should have empathy, or how we look, the way we look at things. Very true. So we have Dita Fatah with us. Dita Fatah, you have been a leader for over 40 years, and you have seen a lot of fights and disagreements. A good. What about you as an experienced leader? How you should be navigating the moral disagreements, tensions, and conflicts in an organization based on your experience?
All right. Just want you to imagine the following situation. You got two neighbors who live across the street from each other. One neighbor, he is actually fighting an issue, cockroaches, ants in his house every single day. While the other neighbor, he has absolutely no issues. And you know what? Because the one who has no issues with cockroaches and ants, he took what we call preventive measures. No crumbs on the floor. The house is clean, fumigating outside the house. So he has absolutely no issue. The same thing with leadership. If you do take preventive measures in advance, then you will have less conflicts on your hand. Now, what are the preventive measures? It's very simple. It's what I've just described earlier on in my answer. By being ethical, by being walk the talk, by listening to people, by listening with your mind and with your heart, by responding. These are the preventive measures one take, and it reduces. And trust me, I had very little conflict, because conflicts come from personal differences. Conflicts come from lack of fairness, injustice. These are where they come from. Now, those preventive measures will eliminate those. However, let me tell you a small example, which I had one time, a difficult conflict on my hand. I had a finance manager who's been there for like 15 years, really good finance manager. And then suddenly changed his behavior. He created an anonymity. He became aggressive with department heads. I tried to find out what it is. And suddenly there were cliques who were supporting him and others. So one day I decided to take him out for dinner. And it was a Friday, we went for dinner. We had a really great time. We talked about families, etc. And then he made a statement. And I realized what the problem was. He said to me, look, we have a good system. We are keeping our books. Now you're talking about introducing an electronic system, you know, and it's important. We have the records on paper and what have you. Then I realized he's got a problem, and that is what we call computer illiterate. So I immediately took the right steps and engaged him into training, aggressive training. And I really invested a lot in him. And guess what? Eventually, that eradicated that particular problem. So there again, one of the things is preventive measures. Two, a leader must always remember that he's got a responsibility. He's not there to play what we call being Mr. Nice. As long as he is fair and he's just, because he's also responsible to the owners, and he has to create that balance because he's there to make profit too. But at the same time, it's important to look after the people. And it's important that any conflict which happens, no matter what, courage and timing to take care of that conflict is very important. But if you don't, and if you are procrastinate, then it grows out of hand, and then it can become difficult to deal with it. So preventive measures are very, very important by implementing what I just said earlier on. Number two, courage and timing to deal with things. And three, listen to people and look at the root causes rather than the service. And trust me, I had a 15 years of great time of one of the best environments ever, where people don't come there because they have to, but because they come there because they want to. Thank you. And back to you.
Overall thoughts, yes, of course, we have to have preventive controls, like we say, and preventive measures, and we have to practice the values, our core values. So we have Jake with us. Jake, I have an interesting topic for you. Can a good leader have an immoral or bad private morality? Is it possible for these to be separate or different, or maybe they maybe are in harmony or in alignment? Can it be possible? You are, so you are,
Oh, this is so juicy and difficult for me not to stand up and get fired up. I know why you picked me. And the answer is absolutely not. And the thing is to remember that just because somebody is a brilliant strategist, just because somebody is incredible with money, just because somebody is talented with words, does not make them a leader. Because something we have to keep in mind is that people follow people who are virtuous. The top, again and again, year after year, whether it's a Harvard Business Review or vast studies, between the top 5 most important thing for our employees and followers, constituents, and shareholders alike is loyalty, honesty, trust. And if somebody is immoral in their private life, how can you trust this person in their professional life? And you are going to eventually come across it. And you cannot intentionally 100% trust this person. So they may be good in business, good with words, good with strategy, but that does not make them a good leader, because you will not have the commitment that they need in order to achieve all that they could possibly achieve if they were in fact ethical and moral 100% of the time. And yes, those people do exist. I know these people, and I help these moral and ethical people become greater leaders and using their talents and strengths and take it to the higher level. So for me, this is extremely important, and clearly, study after study, it is important to the rest of the world. So may we nurture and find more and help these moral, ethical people become greater leaders. Thank you so much for asking me that loaded question.
Wonderfully answered and replied to the interesting question. And I agree that it should be in harmony and it should be aligned. I always say that loyalty is cannot be gray. Either it is black or it is white. You are either loyal or you are not. Simple. There is no gray area in it. So very true. And we have Anandya with us. Anandya, your topic is, your question will be, what does moral high ground means to you? And is it always right to have a moral high ground in all situations? What does moral high ground mean to you? And is it always right to have a moral high ground in every situation?
So thank you, Umar, for this question. And I think this question has been a similar question has been answered by Toastmaster Jake in no uncertain terms in the previous question. But let me add my perspective to this. And to do that, so I work in the pharmaceutical industry. And let me quote one leader from not my company, but I had been associated with this company, George Merck, the doyen of the US pharmaceutical industry. And let me quote George Merck, because that's always been a very, very compelling vision for an organization. And George Merck said, and I quote, we try to remember that medicines are for the people. We try to remember that medicines are for the patients. They are not for the profits. And as long as we have remembered, the profits have never failed to come in. The better we have remembered that medicines are for patients, the bigger has been the profits. Now, this is a very important point I'm trying to make. And if I talk about leadership, and I call it the Tao of Leadership, because Taoism is a very old philosophy, but I think what probably a Lao Tzu had said 2,500 years back are even more relevant today. So the Tao of Leadership, and let me give a simple metaphor to explain this. Let's compare the leadership to a bicycle. Okay, so all of us know what's a bicycle. I'm sure you have ridden a bicycle. So if you look at the bicycle, the pedal and the back wheel of the bicycle correlates to the energy of the leader. And when I say energy, it's all about communication. It's about leading people, inspiring people, and all that. And obviously, it's all talks about the leadership resilience, because you have to hold on your energy for a long time, not only for yourself, but also for the teams you lead. Now, that's the energy piece. If you look at the front wheel, that's the vision or the direction which the leader sets for the organization or for the team, for that matter. It doesn't have to be an organization leader. It can be any leader for that matter. But we should never forget the handlebar of the bicycle, because that decides in which direction the bicycle is going. Whether it's going to go inside a ditch or it's going to run seamlessly for a long, long time over the roads. So I work with an organization which is CIPLA, which we call our mission Caring for Life, but it's not important what we call caring for life. What is more important is what is this organization, which was set at 1935 with the blessings of the father of India, which is M.K. Gandhi. And this organization was created to ensure that medicines are provided at the right price to every patient. And our founder, Dr. K. Hamid, said that none shall be denied. From then, 1935, this organization has also helped save millions of lives in sub-Saharan Africa by offering medicines for the debilitating condition of HIV/AIDS at a less than $1 per day therapy cost, when the prevalent therapy cost was more than 10 times or 15 times. And come to COVID today, the organization is also at the forefront of trying to bring the medicines to the people at the best cost. Now, the question is it always for a moral high ground? A resounding yes, because you cannot have a dissonance between what you are portraying today and tomorrow. And once again, I loop it back to the point which Toastmaster Jake had said. Leadership is a 24/7 job. You're being watched by your people. And in today's world, you're being watched in every emoji you are sharing or not sharing in the WhatsApp group of your people also. So if you're not consistent with your moral values and grounds, be it a person, be it a leader, be it an organization, it's not going to work out in the long term. Over to you, Toastmaster Omar.
Wonderful, Anindya, and great thoughts. So yes, of course, we should have a moral high ground, and we should do best with it. So now, I would like encourage all the panelists to keep it brief, maybe 1.5 minutes, so we quickly go through all the questions. So Patricia, so your topic is gray areas are the testing grounds of our values. Gray areas are not usually right versus wrong scenarios, but right versus right scenarios. So how should a leader be trained to deal with this situation?
Thank you very much, Umar, for that question. And it brings me back to a period in my professional life. I used to work at an embassy, and I remember at the time my little daughter was just about 18 months old, and I was still breastfeeding. And so there are occasions where I would leave office to have my lunch break, and then sometimes my 1 hour is almost going over, and I call my boss, and he will say, "Oh, Patricia, take your time. I know you have to go and feed the baby, etc." And then you get back to work and continue with your work. Now, there were even occasions where he would say, "Take the office vehicle to lunch," and then it helps me to get back on time. Now, why was he doing that? These are the instances that I refer to as the gray areas. Is it something that other staff members will look on and say, this is favoritism? Is it something that others will look on and question? There were a few who would raise their eyebrow. But once again, you're looking at somebody who knew that once Patricia got to her desk, whatever it is that she needs to finish up for the day and even beyond, she was going to put in the effort and she was going to get the job done. How many of us, let me put a test, and I want to see in the chat room, how many of us, while she at office as Toastmasters, you are working and then you would pick your phone and check on your Toastmasters platform for a message or two, quickly get on the phone and work at something and send it back in response to what was being required, whether it was from your club officer or from another team collaborator elsewhere. In ethics, as we talk about the moral high ground, you would again be thinking these are the areas where you find those gray spots. You are at work, and you would obviously be required by your employer to dedicate all your time to work. But you and I know that we may have that moral high ground, but there are times when during working hours, you find yourself picking the phone, checking on your nanny. Is your child doing okay? Picking your phone, checking with school. Is your kid doing okay in school? Sometimes you would have to seek permission to take extra time off in attending to your personal matters. So here I am very specific about, did you take permission? Last week, I had to engage some of the youth in our national civic education where we sensitize them to be more patriotic and also adopt nationalism. I went to my boss with my letter and I said, for this number of days, I would need to take some absence from leave. He shook his head. Patricia, do you have to do that? No, you don't have to take that out of your leave hours. I know you can go do it and come back to the office. It is fine with me. Why would he do that? And this is where we all need to look at ourselves critically. What is your value? What is your moral high ground? We are human. You cannot be 100%, but are those gray areas where you do not find yourself meeting the standard? Are those gray areas between two right situations, or are they between a right and a wrong situation? What I always tell myself is, whatever you are doing at that present time, if you were to have the paparazzi watching you, if you were to be on television, as some of the ethical pillars would ask you, would you be applauded? Would you be celebrated for whatever you will find yourself doing at that time? And that is why I will not shy away to post that activity on Facebook, to post it on my WhatsApp status, so that my husband or my parent, my mom will say, you are like an open book. It's like all your life is lived through wherever people can simply engage and see, because I don't think it is something you have to hide. Does it mean I'm perfect? Of course not. I'm not perfect. I don't always get it right. But do I always strive for that excellence? Do I always strive to be on that pedestal that will let me get towards my more authentic leadership self? I do. And so it is about identifying those gray areas and asking yourself that test question. Whatever you are doing, is it congruent, as he mentioned, with your values, or you find yourself in an incongruency? If you find yourself in that state of dissonance and your conscience is judging you negatively, you need to pay attention to that. So, whatever you're not able to take time off, whatever you can't, as it were, not justify the wrong, but justify the right, and make sure you're able to compensate for whatever losses. And in this space, in your professional work, whatever time you take away to do personal stuff, ensure that you put in that extra work without requesting for extra pay for overtime. Back to you, Toastmaster Omar.
Thank you, Patricia. Wonderful thoughts. DTM Fatah, your topic, your question is, during your 40 years as leader, have you ever acted as unethically?
Excuse me? Am I hearing right?
Yes, you have.
Are you insinuating after what I've just explained, being an ethical leader? Who do you think I am? Mr. Perfect? Of course I have. Of course I'm my life. Let me tell you, I broke the ethic twice in 2 different areas. Lying, and playing politics. All right, and I'm going to admit it in front of the panels today. Lying, being a husband, I'm also a leader of the family. I lie to my wife about my salary. You know why? Because we have 2 different mindsets. My wife wants to catch the money. She wants, you know, when I say, look, we want to help somebody. No, why should we help everybody? And yet I would like to buy clothes. I would like to enjoy myself. So I used to hide part of my salary from her so that I can do what I like and I can help people when they need help. That was about a white lie, but still, it's dishonest in a way with my wife. And the second one is playing politics. And that was during my early days, in my 30s, in the middle 80s, when I was a marketing manager, working in an organization which was toxic. The leader was following a system of divide and rule. And he was actually rewarding those who are loyal to him personally, selfish. And in spite of my efforts, and in spite of the results I'm achieving, I felt ignored. So I disconnected and I switched off and I started playing politics. Now what happened during the middle of 80s, the business of Saudi Arabia started really slowing down. And when his results started getting lower, he felt vulnerable. And that's the time he had an ear for me. And then he approached me. And then he heard what I had in mind. Now, although it would pain me at that time to do what I did, but let me tell you, I'm happy that I did because I learned a lesson from it. And then when I became on top of the hierarchy, I became the most passionate person to create what we call the healthiest environment ever, because I knew how much politics actually creates diversion, how much politics actually wastes energy, and more than anything else, how much politics actually and unfairness can make somebody feel the pain, because I have felt the pain. So what I have established is a healthy work environment. As I said, where actually every problem is our problem. We sit down, we talk about it, and we focus 10% on analyzing it, 90% on the solution, and we move on. Listen to everybody with your heart, with your mind, and celebrate every single day. Any small thing, we do celebrate it. Yes, I did break it when I was learning, but I've learned a lot from it and it served me well. And by the way, I don't lie to my wife now. She knows the truth, and maybe I became a better person now, financial-wise. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Yes, of course, we are not perfect. We can make mistakes. Last question I'll take from Jake, and then we'll close it off. We are running out of time actually. So let's say, Jake, is it permissible to use followers merely as a means to another end, or must they always be viewed as an end in themselves? Jake.
Always viewed as an end in themselves. In short, let me reiterate, let's reframe what we just said. And that is really, there are people in business and in life who will treat people like people, or people who will get people to do something to get what they want. Now, put in those terms, which one is a leader going to how are they going to act? They're going to take people into consideration at all times. And they're going to work with people to do what is best for the people. And sometimes it means being honest to them. And honesty sometimes doesn't feel so good, but it's because you care. And an excellent leader will then empower other people to use their gifts towards the greater good. They will look for all ways to get them to take some of their own risks to help the greater good. And it isn't something where it's about you. It's not about me. And that's how we get ahead. We get together as a team. And when somebody is only thinking about themselves in the end, they're not going to get as far as they would when they're thinking about the collective and empowering the collective. And in that, I respect your time. And thank you so much for letting me just get to the point on this one.
Thank you, Janjay. Wonderful. And of course, our main objective should be for the building the human resources and taking care of the employees. So they are the ones that are doing the bulk of the work and everything. So, and with the shortage of time, I would like to conclude this panel discussion. And it was lovely and amazing insights you shared about leadership. All four of you, your words of wisdom, your shared experiences, Ditem Patricia, Ditem Che, Ditem Pata, and Ananda, wonderful insights shared. And I truly believe transparency and being role model is very important. Leading by example. Your ethics come from your inner values, and that are the ones that drive you to success and to become great in the eyes of others. With this, I would like to conclude my ethical leadership discussion. Thanks a lot for your time and your patience and wonderful insights here. Thank you. Over to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you.